Good morning, class. Topic for today's class is acute respiratory infections in children. So, in this class, we'll have an overview of acute respiratory infections as a whole, and we'll discuss in detail about community acquired pneumonia and bronchiolitis. So, acute respiratory infections are a major cause of morbidity and mortality in young children worldwide, and ARI accounts for 30 to 40% of hospital visits by children. Most young children worldwide have 4 to 8 episodes of respiratory infections per year, and ARI is responsible for 20% of under 5 mortality, out of which 90% is from pneumonia. So, if we see at the figures, pneumonia accounts for 9.2 lakh deaths per year, which is maximum in the developing countries because pneumonia is closely linked to poverty and it's mainly seen in low socioeconomic group of people. Now, if we consider the under 5 mortality due to infectious diseases worldwide, pneumonia, as you can see, is the leading killer. It causes one third of all under 5 deaths from infection. 33% of deaths due to infectious diseases is due to pneumonia. How do you define acute respiratory infections? So, acute respiratory infections comprise infection in any part of the respiratory system, upper or lower, lasting less than 30 days. The classification can be anatomical classification or WHO or clinical classification, which basically helps in identifying the few children having pneumonia among the many children with ARI. If we look at the anatomical classification, on the basis of site of infection, respiratory infections can be acute upper respiratory infections and lower respiratory infections. So, upper respiratory infections consists of airways, the tract, upper respiratory tract. It consists of airways from nostrils to the vocal cords in the larynx. So, it includes the paranasal sinuses, the middle ear, mainly includes the nasal cavity, pharynx, and larynx. While the lower respiratory tract, it covers the continuation of the airways from trachea to bronchi, then bronchioles and alveoli. So, in if we what are examples of acute upper respiratory tract infections? Nasopharyngitis, rhinitis, tonsillitis, pharyngitis, sinusitis, otitis media, epiglottitis, and laryngitis. While in lower respiratory tract infections, we can have bronchitis, bronchiolitis, and pneumonia. The second way of classifying was the WHO or the clinical classification, which is divided into two age groups. The first is from ARI in children 2 months to 5 years of age. In this, we classify ARI into three groups. The first is no pneumonia group, in which the child only has cough and cold but no signs of severe disease. The second is pneumonia, in which there are symptoms of fast breathing or tachypnea with or without chest and drawing. Okay, and in severe pneumonia, there are danger signs. These specific danger signs given by WHO: inability to feed, lethargy, unconsciousness, convulsions, central cyanosis, repeated vomiting, and stridor in a calm child. So you should remember that in children 2 months to 5 years of age, ARI is classified into three: no pneumonia, pneumonia, and severe pneumonia. Why I'm stressing upon this is because the earlier classification of WHO had four categories. Very severe was also there, but in this new latest classification, there are only three categories. Now, if we look at the classification of ARI in children less than 2 months, we have three categories again. In this, no pneumonia, severe pneumonia, and very severe pneumonia. Pneumonia category is not there because any pneumonia is counted as severe pneumonia in less than 2 months because these child can deteriorate rapidly and they require hospital admission and treatment afterwards. So if there are no signs of pneumonia or severe disease, it's no pneumonia. If there is fast breathing with or without chest indrawing, it is severe pneumonia. And if there are general danger signs, which I told you earlier, it is very severe pneumonia. Fever or hypothermia is also a sign of very severe pneumonia. Now, coming to pneumonia, which is the main topic for today's discussion, pneumonia is defined as inflammation of the lung parenchyma. And as I have told you, it is the leading infectious cause of death in children younger than 5 years of age. What are the risk factors? The risk factors are basically more related to poverty, and the factors are malnutrition, low birth weight, pollution and overcrowding, whether indoor or outdoors. When the child is not immunized properly, there is not insufficient breastfeeds given, passive smoking, zinc deficiency or underlying comorbid conditions, and poor socioeconomic class. Now, classification of pneumonia. So, pneumonia can be classified in three manners. The first is a clinical classification, the etiological classification is the second one, and the third is the anatomical classification. So, clinically, if you want to classify pneumonia, it is of three types: community acquired pneumonia, nosocomial pneumonia, and pneumonia in immunocompromised. Community acquired pneumonia is acute pulmonary parenchymal infection which is acquired in the community. Means the patient should not have been hospitalized in the past 14 days. Nosocomial pneumonia is a hospital acquired pneumonia in which the patient acquires the infection or the pneumonia in the hospital when he is admitted for some other disease. So it should signs and symptoms should occur at least after 48 hours of admission. Then immunocompromised pneumonia is a separate category per se. Etiological classification, it can be infectious or non-infectious. We'll discuss this later in another the other slides. Anatomical classification, it is lobar pneumonia, bronchopneumonia, interstitial pneumonia, and miliary pneumonia. So lobar pneumonia. In community acquired pneumonia, this is a major type you get. It is a lobar pneumonia is when consolidation affects a single lobe. It affects a large and continuous area of a single lobe of a lung. Bronchopneumonia, it basically affects the lungs in patches around the bronchi and the bronchiole. So it is multifocal. Interstitial pneumonia, it's when the interalveolar spaces are involved. Etiological classification, the infectious causes are bacteria, virus, fungi, parasites, while the non infectious causes are aspiration, then hypersensitivity pneumonitis, and drugs or radiation induced pneumonitis. This you should know clearly etiology according to the age of the child. So, according to the Indian statistics, in the age group, neonates and infants less than 2 months, the most common causes of pneumonia are gram negative bacteria like Klebsiella, E. coli, other gram negative bacteria, and sometimes staphylococcal pneumonia. So, this is very important for you that the most common causes are gram negative bacteria in the age group less than 2 months in India. Group B streptococcus is a very important, or in fact, the most important cause of pneumonia in the Western world, but in India, it's very less common. In the age group 2 months to 5 years, we see that virus they acquire an important position. Means the common causes of pneumonia are due to viruses, respiratory syncytial virus, parainfluenza, influenza, human metapneumovirus, adenovirus, and rhinovirus. A major chunk of pneumonia is due to viruses in this age group, and in bacteria, the most common are pneumococci and H. influenza. You also see that chlamydia and mycoplasma, which causes atypical pneumonia, they are also increasingly common in this age group. More than 5 years in bacteria, pneumococci, mycoplasma, and chlamydia. So, atypical pneumonia is quite common in this age group. It's very important to know the cause of bacteria pneumonia according to the age. Now, coming to the pathogenesis, what happens basically? How do you acquire pneumonia? So it is acquired, the infection is acquired by inhalation of droplet nuclei or direct hematogenous seeding of the lung parenchyma, or it can be acquired by aspiration also. By either of these means, the infection reaches the airways, there is colonization of the organism in the respiratory passage, which ultimately reaches the lung parenchyma and induces an inflammatory reaction there. So there are inflammatory cells which fills up the alveoli. There is inflammatory exudates. There are toxins released. All this causes fluid-filled alveoli and ultimately consolidation of the lung. Now, what is recurrent pneumonia? Recurrent pneumonia is defined as two or more episodes of pneumonia in a single year, or three or more episodes ever, with radiographic clearing between the occurrence. So, if you come across a case of recurrent pneumonia, an underlying disorder has to be considered. Now, what are the clinical features of pneumonia? The most important symptoms of pneumonia are cough, fever, and tachypnea or difficulty in breathing. The most important out of these is, of course, difficulty in breathing, as cough may not be present in younger children. Fever is usually present, which can be a low grade fever in viral pneumonia, and high grade fever with chills in bacterial pneumonia. Then there can be chest pain, abdominal pain, shoulder pain in older children. In severe pneumonia, as I told you, the danger signs can be present: feeding difficulty, drowsiness, less restlessness, convulsions, and there can be abdominal pain, vomiting, and diarrhea, which are non specific atypical symptoms. Coming to the signs, the most important and the most consistent feature of pneumonia is tachypnea or fast breathing. Then there can be signs of increased work of breathing like retractions, intercostal, subcostal, or suprasternal retractions, and nasal flaring. You can have diminished breath sounds, crackles, or wheezing. Crackles are usually present in bacterial pneumonia, and wheezing is more common in viral pneumonia. In severe cases, there can be hypoxemia, saturation less than 90%, cyanosis, and respiratory failure. So, what are the criteria for tachypnea or fast breathing? So, according to WHO, fast breathing is present if the respiratory rate is more than 60 breaths per minute in less than 2 months, more than 50 breaths per minute in 2 months to 12 months of age, and more than 40 breaths per minute in a child from 12 months up to 5 years of age. This you all should know. You have to assess the respiratory rate for 1 full minute. Child should not be crying. Respiratory rate assessment is important because tachypnea is the most important feature, as I told you. There can be presence of certain danger signs: severe chest indrawing, grunting, hypothermia, not feeding well, convulsions. These are the clinical features of pneumonia. By the clinical features, you can have a certain idea whether this pneumonia is bacterial pneumonia or viral pneumonia. So, in general, bacterial pneumonia have an abrupt onset with a progressive course, while viral pneumonia are it's gradual in onset with usually a self-limiting course. And bacterial pneumonia is progressive if treatment is not started. A child with bacterial pneumonia is toxic with high grade fever and more respiratory distress as compared to viral pneumonia. There can be symptoms of associated or preliminary URTIs in a case of viral pneumonia like rhinorrhea. Crackles are mostly present in bacterial pneumonia, while wheezing is usually present in viral pneumonia. The X-ray shows a confluent infiltrate in bacterial while a diffuse infiltrate in viral, as I'll show you later on. So, what are the investigations which are useful in a case of pneumonia? The first and foremost is X ray chest, then CBC, acute phase reactants like ESR, C reactive protein, procalcitonin, blood culture, Monto if you're suspecting tuberculosis, and viral antigen detection for mainly viral pneumonias. I'll tell you the importance of each and every investigation. Chest X ray. Now, an infiltrate on chest X ray supports the diagnosis of pneumonia. We can also have an idea about viral or bacterial pneumonia on the basis of a chest x-ray. Viral pneumonia is usually characterized by hyperinflation with bilateral interstitial infiltrates and peribronchial cuffing, while a bacterial pneumonia has alveolar consolidation. You can see here, this is a bacterial pneumonia. It's poorly demarcated alveolar opacities with air bronchograms, and this is a viral pneumonia which predominantly perihilar streaking, interstitial changes are present, and there is air trapping or slight hyper expansion of the lungs. This is typically an X-ray of staphylococcal pneumonia with pneumatoceles. So pneumatoceles are characteristic of staphylococcal pneumonia, can sometimes be also seen in Klebsiella. If we come to CBC, in viral pneumonias, WBC count is usually normal or not higher than 20,000 with a lymphocyte predominance, while in bacterial pneumonia, the counts are highly elevated from 15,000 to 40,000 with predominant granulocytes. Other investigations are acute phase reactants, which are higher in bacterial pneumonia, blood culture. See, the most confirmatory diagnosis can be isolation of the organism from the body by their blood, by pleural fluid, etc. So, blood culture is important in that way that it can isolate the organism, but it is positive in only 10% cases of pneumococcal pneumonia. So, it is not routinely used. The sputum culture is of very little value. Percutaneous lung aspiration can be used for isolation of the organism, but it is invasive and not routinely performed. Nasopharyngeal aspirates can be used in cases of isolation of viruses, chlamydia, and mycoplasma. Viral antigen detection by PCR gives you a definitive diagnosis of viral infection. PCR can also be used for pertussis and mycoplasma. Then there can be serological testing where we look for seroconversion basically in the acute and the convalescent samples. But all these investigations are not used routinely because they are of very little use. So you should remember that most of the cases are diagnosed on clinical grounds and they are treated accordingly. So the most important diagnosis is by clinical picture. Coming to the treatment part, the treatment consists of supporting care in which you have to give oxygen if needed when the child is hypoxemic, if there are signs of moderate and severe respiratory distress. Fluids have to be given for ensuring hydration of the child, but you must remember not to overhydrate a child. Antibiotics are used as and when required when fever occurs. Analgesics may be required. Antibiotics, which are the mainstay of therapy in bacterial pneumonia, we'll discuss about it. Then there can be, if the respiratory distress is severe, there can be need of CPAP or mechanical ventilation. And apart from this, oral zinc has found to be useful. It's given in a dose of 10 mg per day in less than 12 months of child, and in a dose of 20 mg per day for more than 1 year, and it's given for 7 days. Now, according to the WHO treatment guidelines and follow up, as I told you, the children are classified into two categories according to the age group. First is young infants, less than 2 months of age, and the second is children between 2 months to 5 years of age. And treatment differs in these cases because even the classification and the categorization of cases are different. Plus, the causes of pneumonia in both the age groups are different, so there is a little difference in the treatment. In young infants, less than 2 months of age, as I told you, three categories are there. No pneumonia, when there are no signs of tachypnea, chest indrawing, or any danger signs. In that case, the mother is advised to keep the infant warm, frequently breastfeed the child, clearing of nasal secretions if required, and the mother is explained about the danger signs, which is very important. If the child develops any danger signs, the mother is asked to return quickly. So, this is at the community level. Okay, this part can be handled by the community health workers And WHO mainly focuses on that so that maximum number of children can be covered. So in pneumonia, you have to do just this. If a child comes with severe pneumonia, means the child has fast breathing with or without severe chest and drawing. In that case, you have to refer the child urgently to the hospital and you have to take care that the infant is kept warm. The first dose of the antibiotic is given by the community health worker if the child can accept that, and then he is referred. In the third category, very severe pneumonia, the child is having danger signs. He has to be referred urgently to the hospital. He has to be kept warm during the transport, and first dose of antibiotic, if possible, should be given. Now, when the child comes to the hospital with you, how will you treat it? So, the recommended antibiotics in infants less than 2 months who come to you with severe or very severe pneumonia is either benzyl penicillin or ampicillin along with gentamicin. So, one of these two and gentamicin. The second line antibiotics are in place of ampicillin or penicillin, we can use ceftriaxone along with gentamicin. The second line is usually constituted when the child is not improving with the first line antibiotics. In children 2 months to 5 years of age, according to the classification, as I told you, there is no pneumonia. In that case, home care advice is given. Symptomatic treatment, where you have to give antipyretics, you have to explain about the hydration, you have to help with clearing of the secretions. If the child comes with pneumonia, means fast breathing with or without chest indrawing, even in chest indrawing cases, as chest indrawing was earlier included in severe pneumonia and was an indication for admission, this latest classification says that chest and drawing can also be treated by oral antibiotics at the community level if referral is not possible. So, in this category, you must remember that the antibiotic which has to be given is oral amoxicillin and home care advice. In severe pneumonia, where danger signs are present, you have to give first dose of antibiotic at the community level and refer the child for injectable therapy. So same here in pneumonia, give an antibiotic, oral amoxicillin, treat the fever, ask the mother to return in 2 days for reassessment or earlier if the child is getting worse. So you have to counsel the mother, that is very important that you have to come after 2 days for reassessment, or if the child is getting worse, you can come at any time. In case of severe pneumonia, you have to refer the child to the hospital. So the antibiotics which we give are in pneumonia, oral amoxicillin, which is given in a dose of 80 mg per kg per day, divided twice a day. Mean per dose it comes to be 40 mg per kg, and you have to give it twice a day for 5 days. WHO also recommends that in settings where HIV prevalence is very low, you can also shorten this duration of therapy to 3 days, but 5 days is safe if we consider overall guidelines. And if the child is having severe pneumonia, the first line antibiotics are ampicillin along with gentamicin for 5 days. And the second line is ceftriaxone alone for at least 5 days. Then you have to give supportive measures, as I told you, fluids, oxygen, antipyretics, etc. as needed. Now, if the clinical features suggest staphylococcal pneumonia, like pneumatoceles, empyema, etc., so if clinically staphylococcal pneumonia is suspected, then you have to change the antibiotics. In case of methicillin sensitive Staph aureus, ceftriaxone is given along with cloxacillin, and in cases of MRSA, methicillin resistant Staph aureus, ceftriaxone is given along with vancomycin or linezolid. If you have suspicion of atypical pneumonia due to mycoplasma or chlamydia, then the drug of choice is azithromycin, which is given in a dose of 10 mg per kg per day on day 1 and then 5 mg per kg per day for day 2 to day 5. So it is given for 5 days. And the second is clarithromycin for 10 days. So this you should know that for staphylococcal, the drug of choice is this, and for atypical, we give azithromycin, which is mostly in children more than 5 years of age. What are the indications for hospital admission? These are the indications: age less than 2 months, the child is toxic, hypoxemic, with moderate to severe respiratory distress, or the pneumonia. There are any complications of the pneumonia developing, like pleural effusion, empyema. The child is vomiting and is not tolerating the oral medications, then he has to be admitted. If the child is immunocompromised, it is indication for admission. Then the child is not responding to oral antibiotics. After oral amoxicillin, the second line oral medicine which can be given is oral amoxiclav or cephalosporins like cefuroxime, etc. And the last reason is social factors, means the child cannot be taken care of at the home. The family cannot adequately supervise the child, the family cannot give the medication or come for follow up, then the child can be admitted. You're giving appropriate treatment according to WHO, but the child does not improve. Then what are the causes? So we have to first ensure compliance. We have to first ensure that the correct doses is being given. After ensuring all that, if the child is not improving, then the causes can be that the child has developed complications like pleural effusion, empyema, etc. There is bacterial resistance to the drug which you are giving. Then there can be some non-bacterial etiology like aspiration, viral. There can be bronchial obstruction from endobronchial lesions or foreign body, mucus plugs, or there can be some pre-existing lung diseases like immunodeficiencies, ciliary dyskinesias, cystic fibrosis, etc. Or there can be non-infectious causes like hypersensitivity pneumonitis, eosinophilic pneumonia. Now, what are the complications of pneumonia? The complications can basically be of two types. The first one is caused by direct spread of the organism within the thoracic cavity, and the second is by hematological spread. So, it can spread to any part of the body. And within the thoracic cavity, the complications are pleural effusion, empyema, and pericarditis. And by hematological spread, the pneumonia can complicate into meningitis, endocarditis, suppurative arthritis, or osteomyelitis. How can you prevent it? So there are certain non-specific measures which you can implement at the environmental level, at the personal level, which can prevent pneumonia. First is improving the socioeconomic condition, because most of the risk factors are related to poverty and low socioeconomic class, giving health education to the mothers, decrease overcrowding, improving the nutrition of the child, promoting exclusive breastfeeding for 3 months and gradual start of complementary feeding thereafter, avoiding passive smoking, which is very dangerous, and personal cough etiquettes. In specific measures, immunization plays a very important role. Immunization against measles, pertussis, diphtheria, and tuberculosis. As you all know, pneumonia is a complication of measles. So, if you can avoid measles, pneumonia can be prevented to some level. Pertussis can cause pneumonia, diphtheria, tuberculosis. So, immunization against these important diseases is very important, and all of these diseases are covered in the Universal Immunization Schedule of India. Then the vaccines which should be the coverage of these vaccines should be increased: pneumococcal vaccine, hib vaccine, and influenza vaccine. Since these are the major causes of pneumonia in the age group of 2 months to 5 years and even beyond 5 years, if they are implemented in our immunization schedule, it can go a long way in reducing the cases of pneumonia. Then vitamin A and zinc supplementation. Okay, so we have covered myth pneumonia, and the second topic of importance is bronchiolitis in respiratory infections. So we will cover bronchiolitis now. Now, what is bronchiolitis? So, acute bronchiolitis, you must know, it is a diagnostic term and it is used to describe the entire clinical picture which is produced by several different viral lower respiratory tract infections in infants and very young children. So, it is important. The age group is 1 to 6 months and it can occur up to 2 years. So, it occurs in very young children, and it is a diagnostic term which in the children which are having this clinical picture of viral lower respiratory tract infections, it is called as bronchiolitis. Respiratory findings which we get in bronchiolitis are tachypnea, wheezing, crackles, and bronchi, which result from inflammation of the small airways. It is mainly caused by respiratory syncytial virus, which is the causative factor in about 50% of the cases. The others are human metapneumovirus, influenza, parainfluenza, adenovirus, rhinovirus, etc. Now, looking at this figure explains the entire clinical course and pathophysiology of bronchiolitis. So, what happens in bronchiolitis? It is basically a viral infection. So, first you get preceding symptoms of URTI. So, when bronchiolitis occurs in a child, what is the presentation? The child first develops symptoms of upper respiratory tract infection like rhinorrhea with or without fever. After about 2 to 3 days, the child starts getting persistent cough, increased work of breathing in the form of retractions, then the child may start getting wheezing, rales, and impaired feeding. So after these symptoms of URTI on about third day of life, the child has an abrupt onset of cough, abrupt onset of increased work of breathing, retractions, the child is in respiratory distress, and he has a lot of wheezing in the chest. After about 10 days, the disease starts resolving. There's a self-limiting disease with resolution of symptoms. During this time, what happens is that first the virus affects the upper respiratory tract. It infects the epithelial cells which are sloughed into the lower respiratory tract. So in the beginning, lower respiratory tract is normal. So this is normal. This is the lower respiratory tract. After about 3 to 4 days, the infection reaches the lower respiratory tract. There's further infection of the epithelium with edema, sloughing of the cells, mucus production, and edema. So all this causes obstruction of the airways. The edema, the sloughing of the cells, the mucus, all this obstruct the airways and it results in air trapping. The ciliary function is impaired and there are polymorphs and lymphocytes which predominate the inflammatory response. So this happens later on. After that, there is regeneration of the epithelium after about 15 to 16 days of infection, and there is self limitation of the infection. So, what is the pathogenesis? There is inflammation of the bronchiolar mucosa. There is edema, mucus plugging. All this causes bronchiolar narrowing or obstruction. There is increased airway resistance. So since airway resistance, it is increased both during expiration and inspiration. But since the airways are narrower during expiration, it mainly leads to expiratory wheezing, air trapping, and lung hyperinflation. Now, if this obstruction becomes complete, then the air will be trapped distally and it will be reabsorbed and the child will develop atelectasis. Later on, in severe cases, there can be hypoxemia and hypercapnia. So, what exactly is happening? That there is inflammation of the bronchioles, which results in blockage or narrowing of the bronchioles. It increases the airway resistance since the airways are narrow during expiration. So there is expiratory wheezing. Since the airways are narrow, the air cannot escape properly. So there is trapping of air and there is lung hyperinflation. And if this obstruction is complete, the air gets trapped, it gets reabsorbed, and the child develops atelectasis. So the clinical features, as I told you, the child first gets symptoms of upper respiratory tract infection with sneezing, clear rhinorrhea with or without fever, and it is followed by relatively abrupt onset of paroxysmal cough, dyspnea, and irritability. There will be tachypnea, nasal flaring, retractions, and then there can be wheeze and crackles. Expiratory time may be prolonged. The child may present with apnea also before the lower respiratory symptoms develop. So, apnea may occur early, especially in very young infants. Poorly audible breath sounds suggest severe disease. So, if you find a silent chest but the child is having a lot of distress, then it suggests complete bronchial obstruction and it is more dangerous. How do you diagnose bronchiolitis? Bronchiolitis is a clinical diagnosis. You should all remember that. Particularly in a previously healthy infant who's presenting with a first episode of wheezing following a period of upper respiratory system symptoms, and the child is young, less than 1 years of age, the first thing you can think of is bronchiolitis. Chest radiography is not routinely indicated. White blood cell counts and differential counts are usually normal, and viral testing can be done, but it's not routinely recommended for detection of the virus. The treatment is mainly supportive. Antibiotics have no role because it's a viral infection, so all you have to do is to support the infant with supportive treatment. The mild cases who do not have respiratory distress can be cared at home. Those who are having respiratory distress should be hospitalized. They should be nursed with head and neck elevated 30 to 40 degrees. Then the main treatment which is useful in bronchiolitis is warmed and humidified supplemental oxygen. So supplemental oxygen has to be given when saturation is less than 90% according to American Academy of Pediatrics. So this is the only treatment which has been found to be useful in the treatment of bronchiolitis. In severe cases, high flow nasal cannula should be applied to the child. It is a non invasive mode of oxygen delivery which is capable of providing some positive end expiratory pressure. So it prevents alveolar collapse during expiration. You may also need CPAP or assisted ventilation in severe cases. The hydration should be maintained by IV fluids. There should be frequent suctioning of the secretions, which is important. Now, earlier there used to be, in fact, even today, the child is giving multiple nebulizations, but they have found to be of very little role in treatment of bronchiolitis. So, nebulization have been tried with epinephrine, hypertonic saline, bronchodilators, but efficacy of none of these have been established. They have doubtful benefits. Antibiotics have no role, and ribavirin, which is the only currently available antiviral medication targeting RSV, that is also not currently recommended. So, bronchiolitis I've covered in short, but this is important for your theory point of view. Thank you. I hope you have understood the lecture.